Hi, welcome. My name is Mal. If you've seen me on the internet before, it's probably because you are one of 12 people that has watched the monster romance podcast that I do called Monster Deep Dive that I do with three of my very best friends, Laura, Jorah, and Micah, where we talk about various books, video games, movies that we've read, and our love for all things monster and monster romance. But I'm not doing that today. We are here to talk about a monster in a way. But I'm here on my own by my lonesome. We've been talking for a while, as the 12 of you that watched our podcast would know, obviously following with bated breath, that we have been on hiatus for I think over a year at this point since we have posted anything, well over a year since we have filmed anything, the four of us together, even though we spend every single week of our lives together, usually multiple times. And we talk about the same things we talk about on the podcast, but we just don't put a camera up and film it. But yeah, it's been a long time since we have done anything together. So we'd been talking about, hey, while we're on this hiatus, I'm working on editing some of the things we have in our backlog and we're planning our grand, glorious return, we could each, individually be filming things that we are excited about and supporting each other and sharing those opinions that we normally just share with each other with the world. And so in that context, I went with Jorah, who is on the Monster Deep Dive podcast with me. We went to go see the new movie that came out. It's got Mike Flanagan's name on it as a producer, but it is written, directed, and produced by a YouTube movie reviewer called Chris Stuckmann. The movie's called Shelby Oaks. So we both went to go see that last night. And as soon as we got back, we were texting Micah and Laura and saying, hey, our expectations were not really met. We had a lot of opinions, not a lot of them very positive. So, again, I like to take a piece of media, even ones that I love, and I really like to dig in and dissect them and think, okay, what was good? What does this say? What does this have to say? Do I agree with what it's saying? And then also, if it were me, what would I have done differently? Because it's always, I like to talk a big game about what it is I don't like, but I've never written and produced and directed a horror movie that's got Mike Flanagan's name on it. So who am I? I'm just some punk that set up my camera literally at 8 p.m. last night, couldn't even finish a video and went to bed, and then is now trying to redo it in the daytime. So I couldn't even finish a video. I couldn't even make a movie. With that being said, I felt like the world had to know my opinion on this movie. Obviously, I set up my and I might cut in some footage. I literally set up my camera right after I got out of the movie, looking haggard, okay? Looking distressed. This is me talking on my camera because I literally walked in from the movie. Micah, my friend Micah said, you should make a video essay about what you would change about this movie since you really didn't like it. And I was like, okay, bet. And I turned on my video camera and it's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm alone in my apartment. And I am in the same outfit I was the night before. And is that bad? Does that look bad? Yes. But is it authentic? I guess so. I also didn't realize right when I got out, to be fair, I didn't realize that it was by not small, but by a YouTuber who crowdfunded it, and this was his passion project. So I'm all for supporting a passion project. In fact, support this passion project right now and subscribe to our channel if I've uploaded this. Subscribe, because we love a passion project. We love to see that. We love to see people fulfilling their dreams, okay? But I will say, going into it, I didn't know that. I only saw, as I think probably a lot of people that mayhaps are not Chris Stuckmann fans saw, I saw Mike Flanagan's name on it, and I had expectations. Okay, I had great expectations, if you want to get Dickensian about it, okay? And those expectations were not met. And I am also going to let Past Mallory give you an unhinged recap. So Part 1, sleepy recap of me literally just getting out of the movie. Premise of the movie is that there's a sister, there are two sisters, and one of the sisters is like a paranormal podcast, or not podcast, paranormal investigation YouTuber. So she has this group called the Paranormal Paranoids, and they go around to different like haunted locations and they film themselves, doing paranormal investigations in those places. Anyways, so it's this one sister who's a paranormal investigator, Riley, and her sister, Mia, is kind of the protagonist, I guess, of the film, the character that we follow. That's her older sister, and she is looking for Riley after Riley has gone, and her four like co-investigators who are part of the Paranormal Paranoids have gone missing in this mysterious abandoned ghost town called Shelby Oaks. So you start out you're dropped into this documentary about these the missing paranormal paranoids. There's footage of kind of their last night. You see Shelby walk out, and then you see this kind of like, it's very hard to see. I will say this found footage, I was squinting a lot of the time, really just trying to figure out what was going on. But there's like a man that you see in the footage, like right before it cuts out. So everybody starts saying, who took Riley? They painted on like billboards and stuff. Then you're in this documentary, you're like, okay, I'm getting a lot of lore, a lot of exposition drops about this abandoned town, and seeing some of their past, like footage from their past episodes when they go to a prison, and start to get the vibe that maybe Riley is seeing real ghosts. There are some instances where like she's in the prison and like her breath turns foggy, and she's like, do you feel that it's cold? And she'll like be staring off into the distance when they're filming, and like want to leave or whatever. And so you get the vibe that something's going on with Riley. She's kind of seeing stuff, and she's not happy. She's not pumped about it. While they are filming this documentary with Mia in present day, Riley's sister, a man comes to the door, opens the door. He says, he finally let me go, and immediately shoots himself in the head. You get another found footage video. Basically, the sister investigates. She wants to go find her sister because she got this other footage that shows the people, her other co-investigators, being killed. They're found in this like abandoned house in Shelby Oaks, but Riley is still missing. And you see that she kind of gets scooped up and taken by the dude that shot himself. So she doesn't give the footage over to the cops because she's like, well, they're not going to do anything. They'll know who took her and they won't look for her anymore. So I'm going to keep it. It's mine. And she also kind of sees like a spooky, she now starts to see, her sister was seeing a spooky figure in the window. Now she's seeing the spooky figure in the window. So you're like, what's going on? There's something spooky following this family. And so she, of course, decides, okay, well, I'm going to do some investigation. So she goes to the library. She starts Googling things. She's like, who is this guy? Because she gets his name from the police. And they're like, do you think that this has anything to do with your sister? And she's like, of course, it doesn't have anything. I have no idea. Why would this have anything to do with my sister? It's not like I'm keeping a secret videotape from you. Why would I do that? That would be something a mentally unstable person would do, and I'm not mentally unstable. And so then she, does classic library investigation. And I will say, I love a library investigation scene because when I see a library investigation scene, I'm always hopeful. As again, if you know me, you will know I love lore. So I was like, this is my moment. Like, we're going to get some lore. We're going to start to get like, okay, what's going on with this abandoned town? Like, is this guy connected to the ghost town? Like, because I was still, in my brain, I was still like, it's about the ghost town. Like, the ghost town is called Shelby Oaks. So it's going to be about what happened to this town, this ghost town, And so we're going to get fun lore. And then she's going to go explore the town and there's going to be fun ghost times. That was what I was expecting, I think, from the trailer. And that was a fair expectation of what I was expecting. But we don't really get lore. We get a few, brief little internet pages about incubi and hellhounds. I couldn't really, they were going so fast that it was like literally, when I say like, it was literally just like showing you the words like hellhound, incubus, surrounds its progeny. This can't be the only lore that we're going to get for the whole movie. This can't be it. It can't just be like we go on the internet and we Google and the first thing we Google is the whole movie. That can't be, that's not how this isn't Twilight, okay? Is this Bella going on the internet and Googling vampire and she's cracked the code? That's very much what it felt like to me. And I did not, but I had hope at that point. Now looking back, I didn't even think about how much that irritated me, but now it really did irritate me. So she does her little sleuthing. Okay, she gets some backstory on this man who, Lou Wilson, I think that's not his name. His name now is Lou. So this guy, Lou, he was an inmate. In the abandoned prison, of course, classic, where Riley was doing her paranormal investigations and like the fog came out of her mouth and she's like, "Oh my God, it's cold." Yeah, he was an inmate there, and oh my God, would you believe it? Right where she was walking by, I was like, "It's cold." That was where that guy was standing when a massive prison riot broke out, and a bunch of people like died, I think, and like then the prison shut down, and that guy kind of like went off the grid and he went missing. So the sister's like, she's like, "I've connected the dots. I've connected everything.
I've connected the two dots."
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
Okay, because when this guy, she goes back and she tells her husband, she's like, "Listen," she sits him down with all of these pictures that she's found. And she's like, "Okay, listen, my sister was tormented by these night terrors until she was 13. And then this random man who came to our home and shot himself in front of me, because he kidnapped my sister. When he went to jail, the night terror stopped. So with the time period that he was in jail, my sister didn't have these night terrors anymore. And then when he got out, boom, she died or whatever. She didn't die. She got kidnapped. She was, this guy came and got her. So coincidence? I don't think so. She's like, demons. And her husband looks at her and is like, "You need help." And honestly, I do. Saying it, okay, in the moment, in the movie, Dora and I looked at each other and we were like, typical. He doesn't believe women, But now saying it back, in the context of the entire movie, no, I get it. I would be like, "Girl, I don't think that you've connected the dots. I don't think this makes sense." And she goes to this prison, and I realize now it's important context for you to know this important sister backstory. Okay, they lived, I guess, in the woods somewhere growing up. I don't know. And their mom used to carve into a tree their initials so that then they could find their way home. So they would she'd carve a little heart, and then she'd carve R and M into the tree. So that way they would know for Riley and Mia. So that way they would know to come home. So you start seeing like in every place that the sister goes, carved somewhere is a little R and a little M, which I was into. I mean, I didn't like how it was, and I'll talk about what I didn't like, but I didn't like how it was introduced, but I did like the idea of it. Okay. I saw the vision. I saw the potential. And so then she goes to this prison, okay? And she gets in the prison and she's walking by and she's like, I'm at cell 37. And she walks in and what do you think she sees? She sees R&M. She sees the carving. She hears some spooky ghost voices that I don't know what they said. And then there's like a spooky dog that shows up because there was a dog outside of her window. She's running. She runs out and she drives away. And you're like, okay, well, girlie's going to go back home, do some more investigating. No. Because we got to wrap this movie up. So she goes to Shelby Oaks and it's the middle of the night. And where do you go in the middle of the night? Obviously, to the spooky abandoned Ferris wheel where your sister, in this abandoned town, where your sister, you watched her carve your initials. Walks out, she goes, she touches the little wood where her sister carved their names. She turns around. There's the dog again. Oh my God. The dog leads her to this house, right? And I did look over at Jorah. Okay, the dog would have gotten me too because Jorah was like, I don't know what the fuck is up with this dog. And I looked at her and I was like, he's just a good boy. He's just a good boy. And he's trying to lead her to safety, Jorah. And the dog did. The dog let her out of the woods and led her to this house, okay? And I looked at Jorah and I said, that's a good boy. That's a good boy, okay? He's not spooky. He's just a good boy. So she goes to this house, right? She gets to this house. The lights are on, even though this is supposed to be a ghost town, right? They're supposed to be completely uninhabited. And the house has like mold on it. It's like got black mold hella everywhere. And standing outside is this old woman. She's like, hello. And Mia's like, do you live here? She's like, yes, I've lived here. She's like, do you have a dog? And she's like, he's out somewhere looking for snacks or something. Very normal, not creepy at all. And so then Mia, of course, goes inside, as one does. And this old woman, honestly, I love an old woman. I love a spooky old woman. There's just something about them. I don't know. I want to be a spooky old woman. Like, I want to, that it's goals, like they're a vibe. And so she's like, do you want some snacks? Do you want a cracker? And Mia's like, no, I'm good. But she does take a knife out of a ham as she's walking past this old woman who goes to like sit in her little armchair. And she's like, have you seen my sister, Riley? And like shows her a picture. And the old woman's like, no. She asks Mia, she's like, do you want to have children? And she's like, I tried, I couldn't. And she's like, well, maybe the timing just wasn't right. And we're like, okay, why are we talking about this? And so there's this noise up in the attic. And Mia's like, do you live alone? And the old woman's like, no. And she's like, I've lived with my son. And you're like, oh, great. She's like, he's right behind you. And, I guess like it's like, oh, is he going to be right behind her and then murder her? No, it's just a picture. But it's a picture of, would you guess it? Lou, who, that might not be his name, but Lou, our ex-con who kidnapped her sister. Oh my God. Wow. So she asks the old woman, she's like, I think I will take a snack. The old woman goes to the kitchen. She immediately texts her husband, is like, turn on Find My Friends, call the cops. This is where I am. She goes and she looks in a little scrapbook that's like sitting on the side table. And oh my God, would you believe it? There are pictures of Lou and his mom, and then also Lou and her sister. Like just a lot of really progressively creepy pictures. So you realize, okay, yeah, they definitely kidnapped her sister and forced her to marry this man. and have his child potentially. In my brain, it's important for you to know. In my brain, at this point, I was like, timing, okay? Sometimes I lock onto a theory and then I go hard with it. I had an inkling of how this was going to go, but I was like, maybe I'm wrong and maybe it's something more than what I think it's going to end up being. So my brain was like, okay, timing. Well, they kind of look alike in the sense that they both are white women with dark hair. So maybe the old woman is actually just this woman, and there's some, but like time travel. They're gonna get locked in a time loop, baby.
I've connected the two dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
It's got to be something crazy, right? It can't just. This is not gonna be a "Don't you want a baby?" plot, and that's it. That can't be what's happening. It's not gonna be. There's a demon baby, and she's gonna keep the demon baby because she wants to be a mom, and that's her only character trait. That can't be what's gonna happen. I was like, no, it's gotta be. We gotta be stuck in a time warp or something. Okay, there's gotta be. I would have rather literally anything else happened than what happened. This woman is like, Mia's like, is my sister here? I called the cops. Like, and the old woman's like, well, that's not going to matter. You're like, okay. Like, is she already? I'm thinking, okay, well, her sister's probably dead. Like, not looking good. And then this old woman, like, literally just like opens up the rug in her, like pulls back the rug in the living room and reveals this like secret basement, secret basement dungeon. And she walks down. And like inside of the secret basement dungeon is obviously Riley in a literal prison cell cage situation. Like, how? So the old lady just lets her walk up to Riley, leaves the keys so she can free Riley. And then Mia is like trying to get the fuck out of there. And as she's walking out of there, she looks back at the old woman. And the old woman, you see, like, there's been this like figure in the background of like a lot of these pictures and like in the window. And like in some of the jump scare scenes. And then you see that same kind of figure, the demon, obviously, the incubus that she was researching, standing like behind the old woman. And I will admit that I did like the cinematography because the woman's eyes like light up and the demon guy is behind her. And the demon guy, hot, smash. He was the best part of the movie and he wasn't in it that much. They try to leave, but Riley takes off with a fireplace poker, because up in the attic, the woman, you literally open the door and it's insane because this woman is literally doing like, you see the old lady and she's doing like blood magic rituals, over a baby that has been in the attic, silent, asleep apparently this entire time, and she's like carving her arm and then she dies, like she bleeds out and the blood's like dripping over the baby and she's like carving the symbol that you've seen in the movie into things and she like runs her little bloody hand along the wall and then you're like, oh my God, because she's got like a little altar of like a heart and it says R and M, like the sister tree tag, and it's got pictures of the sister Mia and her husband and of Riley and her friends and the random ones of Lou and his mom. So you're like, okay, I guess this is like a family picture wall or something. And yeah, so then the lady dies. And she's like, bless this Cambion, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember what she said, but basically, like, it's classic demon ritual. So Riley's had this demon baby that's now, like, evil. And Riley was going to kill it with the fireplace poker, but doesn't. And then Mia looks at the baby and is like, oh my God. She looks so happy to see this baby. And then it cuts to like her sister's in the hospital. Her sister gets better. Then they're back to documentary of like, oh, she's back and she's recovering, but we're hopeful that things are going to be good. Weirdly, Mia looks really happy at the end of this movie. And I'm like, okay, your sister that you supposedly love was like literally kidnapped for 12 years and raped and forced to have a child against her will that now lives in her house as a constant reminder of what happened to her and is very traumatized. And I don't know, like in that situation, I was just like, I would not be happy. So then the first night that her sister is home, for some reason, Mia's like, you know what? I don't have a lot of space in my house. So she's like, I don't have a lot of space. So baby and Riley are going to sleep in the same room, even though why not put the baby in your room? Like let your sister like recover like on her own without like a baby that she didn't want and almost killed with a fireplace poker, whatever. And then so obviously what's going to happen, right? Baby's in Riley's room. Riley gets up, is going to suffocate the baby with a pillow. Mia comes in and is like, and I'm so exhausted. I just wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And instead I've spent like 30 minutes explaining this movie. Riley takes a pillow and tries to suffocate him. Mia comes in. They start fighting. Riley's like, I love you, Mia. And then goes to suffocate the baby. And she and Riley and Mia fight because Mia's trying to get the pillow away. And then she knocks Riley into the window and Riley falls out the window. And she doesn't die from the fall. She's like laying on the ground for a minute. And you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? Well, Daddy Incubus didn't like that. So he sent 6 his hellhounds on her. And she literally gets like eaten by 3 hellhounds. And then it cuts back to Mia. We don't really even have much of a time for an emotional reaction besides like, oh my God, like my sister just got eaten by dogs. And then a hand like goes onto Mia's shoulder. She like gasps and her eyes turn reflective eyes that people have had when the demon has possessed them, because now she's possessed by the incubus and is going to take care of his weird incubus baby. And then the movie ends. That's the end of the movie, is him putting her hand on his shoulder, her eyes turning color, and then the end. And that's it. In this movie, I thought that it was going to be a more Mike Flanagan coded production, because again, like I really was only going off of, I'd seen a trailer. I've never watched this YouTube reviewers channel, so I had no idea that was even a thing until after the movie was over, and I saw Mike Flanagan's name on it and I was like, I love Mike Flanagan, so I want to go. And I was like, I would like to have another Mike Flanagan monologue in my life for October.
I thought for so long that time was like a line, that our moments were laid out like dominoes and that they fell one into another, and on it went, just days tipping one into the next.
I think for some reason I also was thinking that he wrote this, but he was just a producer. But I saw his name and was like, it's going to be Mike Flanagan coded. It was not. But I think for me going into it, I had a lot of hope at the start, because I think that it had a lot of ideas in it that seemed like it was like the bones of something good, right? So I think the mockumentary style and the found footage, I like that idea. I like the idea of it following specifically like a YouTube, like early 2000s YouTube paranormal investigation. So it's like you have this like burgeoning internet culture, but also at the same time, like they're still using like camcorders. They're not using iPhones like when the paranormal paranoids go missing and stuff, you know, like it's very like nostalgic for that era of time. And it gives you a little bit more of that like analog kind of feel than you have when you live in a world like we do now, where everybody constantly has like the video camera recording device in their pocket, and can send it to people very easily. So, you know, a lot of that like complexity of found footage is circumvented. So I really liked that. I think that the opening of the movie, I really enjoyed like the switch from that found footage and mockumentary. Then there's like a very dramatic kind of, I don't know, jump scare or just like shocking event. I think it might be in the trailer. But, and then the movie cuts to, you know, a normal perspective, third person, I guess, movie perspective. I don't know what that's called because I'm not a film reviewer. I'm just a girl sitting in front of her camera, asking the 12 people that are watching this to follow along. Anyways, so I really liked the opening. I liked the switch between found footage to a typical kind of movie perspective. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really well done. And it was a nice way to break up the kind of different acts of the movie. I like that it was not just something that happened one time, that we came back to it. I also feel like visually it was a very well done movie. Like the scenes were really great. The atmosphere was solid. The main actress, she was phenomenal. She did a really good job of selling that she was afraid and isolated and like desperate to find her sister. I did believe that. So I appreciated that. And a lot of the shots, when I say like visually that it was appealing, I mean like a lot of the shots were just set up very well. So like there was a lot of like eyeball reflections of like when they were possessed by the demon, like there would be like lighting behind their eyes that made them look like they were kind of glowing from within. I really liked that. There were a lot of like, I feel like I can't really review jump scares very well because I have a strong startle response, so the jump scares are always going to get me every single time. It doesn't matter whether I expect it, whether I don't expect it. It's always going to get me because I just have a really strong startle response. But they did get me, and there were multiple that got me, even though I knew they were coming. And there were a lot of shots, especially with the demon in the background, that were very interesting. And I thought like visually, I think that the director had a vision of what he was like, this is what I want to accomplish like cinematographically with these scenes, if that makes sense. And those are my pros. So the acting and the visuals and the incorporation, the idea of the YouTube investigators and the mockumentary found footage stuff, those are my pros. And then my cons are unfortunately a lot longer because I didn't really vibe with this movie. I gave it a lot. Like when I was watching it, I did enjoy it because I gave it the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time, that it was going to get better. Like, so I was able to kind of suspend my criticism and suspension of those kind of negative feelings really until the very end of the movie. And the end was so jarring and abrupt that then I was able to look back and be like, no, okay, now knowing how that was it, I'm not as gracious as I was. Because I think, hello, Umber, you gotta get down. Speak your truth, King. What do you have to say?
I thought for so long that time was like a line, that our moments were laid out like dominoes, and that they fell one into another, and on it went, just days tipping one into the next, in a long line between the beginning.
Where was I? What was I saying?
And the end. But I was wrong.
So I think with that of the positives that I have, I also just kind of want to briefly delve into what the negatives were, okay? Because I feel like there were just a few overall things that really kept me from enjoying the movie. I think overall the movie was very cliche and predictable. I think that once you you get all of the information that you need dropped to you, like literally right into your face, with no effort needed on the audience's part to decode anything or understand like a deeper meaning behind anything, really within like the first 20 minutes of the movie. Like what you see is very much what you get in this movie. So I knew immediately in my mind, like having watched many movies in the mid to late 2000s, horror movies, like I could have watched the first 5 minutes of this movie and if you would ask me to guess what the ending was, like the most, and not just the ending that I thought it would be, because that was very different, but the ending, like the most predictable ending, if you would ask me what that would be, or the ending that I would have liked the least because it was so predictable, that would be what the ending of this movie was. It's just something that I've seen a lot before, and it's also just personally, it is personally a trope that I am over. Like I don't vibe with it. I've seen enough. I've had enough of women, like their only character trait being that they want a baby, demon baby being given to them at the end. I don't vibe with that. I don't like it. That's my opinion. I don't know. Like it just really did not sit well with me, I think. And I kept waiting for there to be like another twist, right? So when Dora and I were at the end of the movie, we really thought that there was going to be something else at the end that was going to make it all, there was going to be a continuation. So we thought that when the sister came back and the sister died, we didn't think that that was going to be the end. I really thought that it was going to be, something more where the sister was going to like have to decide that she wanted the demon baby or reject the demon baby or go back in time to save her. I was coming up with insane. I was insane in that movie theater by this point in the movie, okay? Time travel. And I think it just ended so abruptly. I think if there had been more care taken in fleshing out making me feel like I lived a little bit more in the world of these ghost towns and demons, and it was more than just like set dressing to feel spooky and have a bunch of jump scares and then an ending that was like, oh my god, now the demon's possessing her and she has the demon baby. And basically I feel at the end like the ending was not really earned. So I don't think that there was enough and I'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but I don't think that there was enough development between all of the ideas and themes of this movie. Like I think it was very thematically lacking, and there was like an emotional core and heart of the movie and like a point that it was trying to say that it did not have. So when you get to the end and you have that gut punch ending, I felt annoyed. Because I felt a lot of times like I could just see the strings that this person was using, these narrative tools, to try to make me feel an emotion that I didn't feel like was earned. So, and I'm the kind of person, when I see the little puppet master hands, like I'm like, clocked it, I know what that is, and I don't feel that way, so don't try to make me feel that way. Another one, like that was a very obvious narrative device, was the heavy use of lore drop, like exposition heavy, that was like very much just handing you all of this information, front loading it really at the beginning of the movie to kind of, I can see now why, knowing in context that it is a movie that was like made with a very low budget, that it's somebody's first movie. I understand why you would use the found footage and the mockumentary style of like interviewing like the cops and interviewing people that knew her sister and like internet fans and things. I get why you would use that, but I think in context of the rest of the movie, it just really irritated me because it made me feel like I was not trusted as a viewer to have like pieced any of those things together on my own. Like everything I needed to know was literally projected at me throughout the movie. If there was something I need to know, it was like literally thrown in big letters on the screen into my face. If your movie is about an investigative YouTube team, it would make sense to me that you would let the audience kind of live vicariously in some ways through either the sister that's looking for her missing sister or the sister that's part of an investigative team. Like, let us kind of see through their eyes of how they are investigating. Like, let us get to the bottom of it. Let us see the clues. Make a murder board. I don't know. I love a murder board. I think murder boards can cover a lot of sins. And I think it also robbed us of the opportunity to actually see either of the characters kind of interact with the world and get any kind of like agency in moving the plot forward. It felt very much like it was all handed to them. There was no real need to watch any of that video footage or piece anything together because she just went to this spooky town where she already knew her sister was this whole time. She did not really need to know about the incubus shit because she didn't do fuck all about it. And then she didn't need to even know really anything about anything because she just waltzed right into where her sister was and did not really learn anything or act upon the plot at all. Like, the only thing that she did in the plot was let her sister go, which probably, was let her sister go so that then her sister could get viciously mauled by dogs, which probably would have happened anyways if she had left her sister in the cage, and then get possessed by a demon.
Go, girl, giving us nothing.
So the pacing and kind of clichéness of the plot really bothered me. I think also I am a person where I tend to go, I go into things with expectations, like people say don't go into things with expectations. I'm an expector. Okay. I always have hopes. I always have high hopes. It's who I am and I can't help it. Okay. So when I see a movie and it has things that I feel like I'm going to resonate with, I go into that kind of expecting that I will be given things that I resonate with and that premise will be met. I don't think that's an unfair expectation. I think that's valid. I think that's human. Okay. And so I went into this movie and I was very excited because I love spooky investigations. I love sister relationships. I am an older sister. I'm an eldest daughter. Okay. So I was expecting there to be some sister stuff. I love ghosts and I love investigating. I love a mystery. Even if there's not a mystery in something, I will try to make it a mystery. Time drop. And again, it's not like I've done a lot of research into this movie, but I will say, looking into it after the fact, I'm glad I didn't do more research because I think I probably would have been more disappointed than I was, because looking at these interviews with this director, he's saying like that it is a lot about the sister relationship, that it relates to him personally because he had a sister that he was kind of estranged from because she was part of a religious group that kind of shunned people when they left and all of this stuff. So I think I would have gone in with even more expectations because also as a girly with religious trauma, like, I would be expecting that this movie would be like exactly everything that I would want out of a horror movie. But I really feel like it did not deliver on that premise of the relationships. I think that the writing in this was very hollow. I think, again, it lacks that kind of emotional core that would really make me feel for the characters. And that makes me sad because, it sounds like listening to this person talk, like this director talk about this movie, it sounds like it's something that he feels is in it. But I think there's a disconnect and it was not really there for me at all. I think the sister relationship, we're really only shown, so like Mia and Riley have this relationship where we're told constantly, we're not shown, we're told over and over again that they care about each other, that they love each other. Like Riley, when they're filming in front of the Ferris wheel, she like carves their initials into the stump on the Ferris wheel and looks at the camera and is like, Mia will know what that means. And at that point, I was kind of like, well, I'm glad that Mia fucking knows what that. I thought that it was going to come back into the plot later and like maybe we'd have a flashback or she would maybe find like childhood footage of them in the woods and maybe they got lost and found their way home together or something, like something to tie the tree markings back to anything. But we didn't get that. And so, you have all these moments where they keep saying like, we love each other, but I don't really feel like it didn't feel like a very believable sister relationship to me because it was just very surface level. It was just like, we love each other, so we'll always come finding each other. But part of being a sister, especially an eldest sister, is that it's complicated. Like I kind of wanted there to be some kind there, especially when you're watching a movie, right? Like you don't want things to just be, I love this person and so I'm going to do anything for them because that is not interesting. It's not interesting for it just to be, they're my sister, so I love them, so I'm going to go after them. There needs to be that something extra there too that makes it a little bit complicated, like your sisters, but also maybe like as an oldest sister, you feel like I wanted to feel that guilt of like something happened to my younger sister and like there's nothing I can do to get her back, like and I feel like everybody else is moving on with their life and I can't because it was my job it's always been my job to protect her and I couldn't because that's how I would feel in that situation. And I could put my feelings in some ways like onto the character. Like I remember Jordan and I looked at each other and we were like, oh, she's ready to go to that prison immediately. And we were like, fair, because same. Because like if that was my baby sister, I'm rolling up. If my baby sister doesn't text me like with an hour of her when she's supposed to get home, I'm rolling up to whatever spooky prison, so I could read into those motivations some, but I think even then it's like every single person experiences life and relationships differently. You can't just assume that your audience is going to put their personal experiences as a mirror onto your characters because their experiences, like they might not have a sister or they might have a sister that like, they're like, well, that's nice that she cares, but my sister doesn't give a fuck about me. So I don't really get this, so I think that you have to do a little bit of work to show that specific relationship, like make it unique, make it interesting, make it a little bit complicated. I think that would have resonated a little bit better for me. I think sometimes it's like you want to show a relationship and if they love each other, the easiest way to do that is just to say, well, they love each other, they would do anything for each other. But also there's always that kind of like tension naturally in people of like your self motivation versus your duty to your family. And, like she's living in a complicated situation, right? Like there would be a lot of complicated emotions for that. And I think that those were not really shown to us. It was just kind of like all of her relationships had already ended. All of her life had already kind of become just this very narrow moment in time where she was just looking for her sister. And I feel like I just needed a little bit of context of who Mia was outside of looking for her sister and wanting to have a baby and not being able to have one. I think part of too why this premise did not really resonate, like why this premise I went into it with high hopes that were not really met, was because I think a lot of times in horror movies, one thing I love about horror movies is that every single one is a little bit like they're different. Like you could have two ghost movies, but the ghosts in those movies could behave in completely different ways. So, in The Conjuring, there's a set list of expectations. When you go into a Conjuring movie, you know what the world of The Conjuring is. You know how the ghosts are going to act, and you know how they're not going to act, unless it's Conjuring 3. And we don't talk about the witchy subplot in Conjuring 3. But most of the time, you know how they're going to act. You know that they start off, they'll attach themselves to a family. When they get attached, then they're like things will escalate and get worse and worse and worse. So what the demon's goals are. And you know how to get rid of them. Like there's a basic set of rules that each movie in the franchise follows. And because of that, you have this kind of vibe and world building with, even though it's set in our world and based off of like these people that were real ghost hunters or whatever, there's still like world building that they had to do in the Conjuring movies to make it feel like this is specifically a Conjuring movie. And I think good horror movies really have that for me, of that world building of this is how things operate in this world. And like there are certain themes that are more present in the movie that might be present, not, like it all works together in order to have this set dressing that makes sense and really adds to the plot. And I think for me in this movie, I don't think that Shelby Oaks really delivers on that, because it really feels like it could be any horror movie, and every horror movie. There is no real kind of unique draw to the way that the demon behaves or the ghosts or anything like that. And it really feels like it is just a bunch of really things that worked well in other horror movies kind of all stacked together. And I think that really hurts this movie, because it has the opportunity to kind of explore an idea that could be very interesting, of this like YouTuber found footage and ghost town. I liked the idea of the ghost town and like how the demon would show up and things would kind of rot and decay, and this idea of things kind of very quickly like becoming isolated and decrepit and a ruin. I think that was an interesting idea, and I don't think that it was really expounded upon. And I think if it had been, I think that this could have really been an interesting movie if it had maybe leaned into that a little bit more and given that ghost town kind of a little bit more world building, and even the incubus more world building. Like it all felt very flat. It felt like you were searching for, he was searching for like, what is the most obvious, I don't want to say that. That sounds mean, but like he was just it felt like he was searching for what would be a good, like what could my ghost villain be or my demon villain be? Okay, incubus, check. And it didn't really feel like he thought about, okay, well, thematically with what I'm trying to say about this movie, what kind of supernatural entity, like what kind of opposition makes sense and is going to resonate with my theme? Because if you just pick a random one, it's not really going to work as well. Like, and why are we following these specific characters? Why does this story matter? Why does this particular spooky thing, like, why does it scare us? I think on the surface level, it felt like a lot of boxes were really being checked. Like, everything in the movie should work together. It all is fine. There's nothing necessarily like wrong with it. It's all just fine. I think the problem is that it all on the surface level is fine, but a lot of these things that are being used, there's not necessarily like a secondary purpose behind why they're being used. Okay, so, and I get that because this is this guy's first movie. I mean, have I ever made a movie? No. So what do I know? But anyways, so for instance, like, you have your surface level of like why narratively you choose to do things and like why something in a movie makes sense to do. So like, for instance, with the found footage, that makes sense to do because it's a very easy way to give a lot of backstory and a lot of narrative in a very quick way, in a way that might be a little bit cheaper than if you had to like stage and light all of those scenes. Normally you can do it like with a little shaky camera footage, and that makes it a lot easier, and your audience gets a lot of information, and they're probably not going to miss that information because it's given to them in a very direct, like, people are literally speaking exactly what you need them to say to get that backstory across. And that's why it's narratively effective. So as a narrative tool, it makes sense. But the thing is, when you have that as just a narrative tool and that's it, and it's only part of the movie, I think that it really begins to fall flat because it needs a secondary kind of underlying purpose. So it needs to add in some way to the themes of the movie. It needs to show character development. Something else needs to be happening other than that. It is just the tool that you use to get across your backstory very, very quickly. Because for me, it really began to rub me the wrong way that I was just being presented all of this information over and over and over again, like just directly into my eyeballs, exactly what I needed to see, because I could really feel at that point, I could really feel the puppet strings being pulled. And what do I mean by like it needs to be thematically relevant? So this movie is about YouTubers, right? Like, that is the premise of the movie. It's not about YouTubers. It's about sisters and all that. But I think the premise is a YouTube group goes missing. I think that it could have tied into bigger theme. Like, I think if this movie had looked at having some kind of bigger theme, like, with why are you using the found footage? Can you tie it to maybe a theme of like, things aren't always as they seem, like maybe, you see something in a produced episode where everything is edited and maybe even manipulated on the back end versus like what is really being seen like in the raw footage of these YouTubers. Maybe that could be kind of a theme because like of what is performance and what is real. Or even going back to the sister relationship, maybe, again, kind of tying into that, there's the perception of who Mia thinks her sister is, and maybe who her sister actually is not exactly the same. Or showing us with the found footage, more of Riley's character, like who she is as a person. I wish that there had been more moments of like Riley kind of casually off camera, or showing even who Mia was like in the doc, like versus like who she was when the mockumentary cameras were rolling versus when they were not. Like having some kind of showing that difference, or some kind. I just felt like it really fell flat to me that they did not have some kind of like underlying purpose other than to very heavy-handedly show you like spooky jump scares and backstory, which I think is fine. I think if the whole movie had been like that, I think that those things would have naturally come into play. I think that if the mockumentary crew had like come along or something, I think that might have helped a little bit. But for it just to be in those moments and that was it, it really began to feel to me by the end that it was like, okay, this is just this is just a cool trick to drop a bunch of backstory and get people to tell you exactly how they're feeling so you know what's going on. I think horror movies that don't stick the landing a lot of times, they really lack, one, that unique world building I talked about, but also character development. I think in the movies a lot of times, and horror specifically, anything that's scary, the reason it's scary is because it's scary to specific people in specific contexts, right? So like when you're watching a movie, I think that you're looking through somebody else's eyes, right? And you're following a specific person for a specific reason. And when it's a good movie, it's usually that you could only be following the people that you are following in the situation that you're following. And in horror movies especially, things can be scarier because of you as the audience know that it would be something that is scary or unsettling, upsetting for a specific character. So because people are scared of different things for different reasons, and it ties in like deeply into our psychology. So if I was watching a movie where we were in a scenario where Micah gets dropped in a cave to scuba dive, for Micah, that might be a little scary, but not nearly as scary as if I was the one who was dropped in a cave and forced to go scuba diving. That would be a much scarier movie to watch because psychologically, I am afraid of the depths of the ocean. That is a very big fear of mine. So I'm going to react in that situation differently. And you as the audience, if you do a good job of it, would be able to see this girl's really afraid of the fucking ocean and the depths. So every time I'm in the depths, not only are you afraid because that's a scary situation to be in, there's that extra layer of this is also specifically really scary for this specific person because of her psychology. And that adds another layer to it. So I think like you can't always just rely on this is a scary situation because anybody would be scared to be in this situation. I think it also adds another layer of why is this a situation that is particularly horrible for this person? Like how is this particularly damaging to this person? And we need to like build a world for that character in which it makes sense that they've been put in this situation and the audience can kind of see through their eyes of how are they going to have that extra fear of how are they going to react and how are they going to respond. So I have a good example of this. For instance, in another movie with Mike Flanagan's name on it, Hush, there is a character, like it centers around a character who is a writer and she's deaf and she lives in this cabin in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere, and her house is like adapted to suit her specific needs as a person who is deaf. And you start out the movie, you really get to see how she moves through the world, how her life looks different, but she's adapted to, you know, it really suits her. And even though it might seem on paper like, okay, this person is living out in the middle of nowhere and they can't hear, there might be safety risks, and obviously there are because her house gets broken into, but she is able to conquer those risks because she is adaptable, and already you can see in the way that she's laid out her life, like she is creative, she's adaptable, she's a problem solver, and in her specific context, the movie is scarier because she physically is not able to hear and rely on her hearing the same way that we are. And you as the audience, you can hear things that you know that she is not able to hear. So that adds to your level of fear. And if it had been a different person without that context, it would not be the same. But not even just because she physically can't hear, but just because of how she is portrayed in the movie as someone who is very capable and adaptable and just a strong woman, like that you really care about and you really root for by the end of the movie. Even though most of the movie is just her running around from these goons in the woods. And so I think that for me, this movie really fell short because I felt like Mia could have been interchanged with anyone. Like, she was just very much a one-dimensional flat character. Because the only thing I knew about her, again, by the end of the movie was that she wanted to have a baby, she loved her sister, and she was estranged from her husband. And she, I guess, was the type of woman that would go driving headfirst to a prison with no plan to rescue her sister, which can't relate. I love a plan. Part 3, what I would have done differently, aka insane brainstorming time. Okay. I'm a person who, and if you know me in real life or if you've watched our podcast, I tend to come up with crazy ideas of, I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, okay, but what if this happened instead? Or I think I really liked this movie, but I wish that this had been something different. Or I'll be watching a movie and I'll get halfway through and I'll be like, oh my God, I think they're all dead and this is all a dream. And wouldn't that be fun if it was all just a dream or something completely just usually out of pocket, usually definitely not where things are headed, but wouldn't it be fun if they did? Time travel. Take it or leave it. But for my fellow lore heavy, brainstormy, daydreaming girlies, I feel like you can relate. And if you can relate, I am all about enabling, okay? Because so if you think as I'm talking, or as you've heard me maybe past Mallory describe the plot of Shelby Oaks, or if you went to go see Shelby Oaks yourself, which I think that you should support, creative endeavors and passion projects, as I said earlier, let me know in the comments what you would have done differently, what you thought Shelby Oaks would be going into it. Would you have wanted to see a time-traveling old lady with a demon baby like I did apparently when I was watching it? And if you didn't, that's okay. If you wanted something completely different, that's fine. And if you liked it, then let me know why you liked it too. Like, I would love to know.
How do you know what's good for me? That's my opinion!
And so with that, let's get into the first. There are two kind of branching paths, okay, that I've laid out. One is spooky ghost town vibes. Second is demon story. I think when I was coming up in my mind with how to pitch these two disparate rewritings, that is what I came up with. I think taking some of the elements out and just really drilling down and focusing on what's there, but just some of what's there would automatically make things a little bit easier, and it would give it a little bit room to add in some uniqueness and depth that I feel like this movie, and again, this movie is only 90 minutes, so it didn't have a lot of breathing room to begin with, but I feel like it really could have used. So, first, I did zero research for this. It's literally the day after I saw it, okay? And I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know that he was a YouTuber until after I filmed the first part of the video that I filmed at 8 at 10 p.m. when I got back in my apartment, okay? So with that said, with all of those caveats, just using this as a thought experiment of looking at this movie, considering nothing else but my own brain and my own opinions about what I think would have been a little bit more effective. Okay, so for branch one, I think it would have been more effective to focus in a little bit more on the paranormal paranoids and the sister relationship. And then from there, we build out a supernatural entity that makes sense for that world and these characters that we've built, okay? And that is going to tie into the themes that we've got going on. So first, we got to really decide, okay, what kind of theme are we going for? I think the movie itself is really lacking in terms of like what it's trying to say about really anything. And I don't think to be fair,
I don't think every movie has to say something, right? I don't think every movie has to have an intense, deeper meaning. I think it can just be, wow, they escaped, they made it out alive, and isn't that great? But also, like, I looked up some interviews that Chris Stuckmann did about, like, the press for this movie and about his relationship with his sister, and this idea in the movie that he wanted to present being that, you know, somebody is alive. Like, you have this, you know, that a family member, a loved one is alive, but it's like they're already gone and there's no way to contact them. There's nothing you can do. They're out of your life. And everyone else is moving on without you, but you just can't, because you feel that connection to them and you miss that connection. And I think that that is something that's really powerful as an idea for a film about sisters. I think that that is something worth being explored and worth having the time and care taken into to exploring it. Because like I said earlier, I'm an eldest daughter and an older sister too, and I feel those things really deeply. I have family that I'm not as close to. And even though, you know, you always feel a little bit guilty that there is that kind of duty and responsibility, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't, you're not able to exist in the same world, even though there is maybe that love there or that connection or that blood tie. You exist in different worlds and you move on. And in some ways, you know, that disconnect can really haunt you for a long time in a lot of different ways. I think that we could do a little bit of work and we could deepen that sister relationship and bring in those themes that Chris Stuckmann mentions in a lot of these interviews, and that I can see the bones of it being in the movie, but it just isn't shown to us. It's told to us in the beginning multiple times that, oh my gosh, they love each other, and the tree carving and things. But I think that we could show it. I think that if we take these characters and we make them a little bit more than just paper dolls, I think that would come through a little bit better. And I have some ideas about how to do that, because of course I do. Because of course I do, because we're an hour into this video. Step 1, characterization. Okay, we gotta add some depth into Riley and Mia, and more as individuals, but more importantly, as what their specific character dynamic relationship is going to be. And that will help us figure out where to go from there. Because if we keep our core emotional heart, right, we want to keep our core emotional heart as these two sisters. So it makes sense to me that we start there. Let's see how we can flesh them out a little bit more. So in the movie, what we have in the movie, we have very little in the way of characterization. Riley, we know that she had night terrors as a child. She likes to draw, and she draws what she dreams. Her sister says that she's a performer, and that she felt she was able to come alive as and into herself in her teenage years and beyond, because she was able to connect into something else when she was performing and pretending to be someone else. That is actually, even though in the movie it's told to us in the form of this mockumentary, so we're not ever shown it in a way that we can really connect with Riley and identify those traits as part of who she is, that is in and of itself is a strong emotional core for this character, right? We have someone, we know a little bit about her psychology, and we also know a little bit about what she wants, right? So we know that she is tormented as a child. What would that make you? Oh my God. Umber, you're making it look like there's a ghost in my apartment. Oh my God. That's just my cat, okay? I don't have a ghost. It's just a cat. we have an idea of who maybe Riley is as a person from those things. Okay, we know she had a anxiety filled, a fear-filled childhood that then she was able to find some escape from in these performances. And through the paranormal paranoids. So I think that is kind of a good background for who Riley is. Okay. I think that we could maybe add a little bit more about, okay, it seems if she's a performer, maybe we can show that in a few ways. So, in the found footage, maybe we have maybe a thing to add would have been a scene or two of her, really milking things for the camera. And then when, in that moment when they cut but the camera is still on, so you can still see it as the viewer, her demeanor completely changes and she seems maybe a little bit more reserved, less like over the top, or maybe, she's really acting like she's really scared when the camera is on, but when the camera is off, maybe she's like, yeah, there's nothing here. Like I would see if there was something here and there's nothing here. And so you can kind of see that level of like, there is a performance going on. So she is going to present herself. She's going to present herself in a way where she can pretend to be, this braver and sparklier and more over the top version of herself versus when the cameras are off, when she's by herself, she is struggling with that anxiety, that, introversion, that fear that she had as a child. And maybe it's not as present as it was when she was a kid, but still showing some kind of like marked difference between, and it just has to be really a moment of just like, where you can see that she is very over the top when the camera is on. And then when it's off, that's not there. Or, maybe when the cameras are on, she's really talking things up. And when they're off, it's not there as much. And I do think that maybe they tried to do that in the movie, but I don't think it was in a way where it really, it was done in a way that felt very cliche. So I think you got to add a little bit more to it than just when the camera is not rolling, or when it is rolling, she's going to carve her sister's initials into the tree. And then when she thinks that nobody's watching, she's just staring off into the distance. I don't think that's enough of like a characterization. I think that just kind of lends itself to horror movie tropes. So we've got Riley, right? We have her. She's a performer. She is part of these paranormal paranoids. And I think for me, right, it would make sense, right? If performing is what gives her an escape from this anxiety, from this fear, from this feeling that things are watching her and that she's seeing things she's not supposed to see, it would make sense that the paranormal paranoids giving her that opportunity to constantly be performing and engaging in that creative endeavor and remaking herself over and over again, would be something that she would hold on to really strongly, maybe in a way that is not going to put her in the best light. Maybe she makes sacrifice. Maybe she doesn't speak to her sister anymore because she is part of this paranormal paranoid group. Or maybe she does speak to her sister, but just comes across as very fake and is always thinking about the next big thing. I don't really know. Again, this is literally 24 hours after I watched this movie, and I'm just thinking of what would have made me feel a little bit better about watching it. But I think it's also important to have Riley kind of, I think in a way, sister characters can also be really effective if you set them up as foils to one another. Their relationship needs to show, there needs to be some kind of conflict in their relationship in a story, right? Like, I mean, you in real life might not have a complicated relationship with your sister. I don't have a complicated relationship with my sister. I love her. We roomed together in college. We were together all of the time. Like, we are very close, and I don't think our relationship has necessarily, like, our relationship does not have that kind of conflict and tension in it that I think would be interesting in a story. So basically what I'm saying is I think Mia needs a little bit more characterization. I think that she needs a motivation, and she needs, right, like I've talked about how the sister relationship is so important, and it is. But also she needs motivation and characterization outside of her relationship with her sister, right? And I think one way you could go about doing this, right, is to kind of set up the sisters as foils for each other, right? I think that that's a very basic way to do it. You could also do it where they always had a good relationship, but then I think that is a little bit harder to show in a short movie, and set up the way that it's set up when they don't have each other to play off of. Like, I think it's going to make it a little bit more interesting if there's some kind of conflict and tension and resentment that was already there but was exacerbated by Mia being missing. I mean, not Mia. That was exacerbated by Riley going missing. I think an easy way to get people to care about the relationships between the sisters is to have them interact on camera. And you would say, okay, but then you would have to change the entire plot of the movie, right? Or the entire flow of the movie, because you would have to add in all these scenes like before Riley goes missing, and how would you even do that? And I would say we already have built into the way the movie is right now a very easy way to do that, to show the relationship between these sisters. And that is with the found footage. I think that we could just go hardcore more into the found footage style and just create an avenue for Mia to be in that found footage and with Riley and show their relationship together. And I have an idea of how to do that. I think easy fix, Mia and Riley, and maybe one or two other people for the sake of, again, having people, I don't want to say people that can die, but people that can die in the movie that you kind of care about, and more people for them to interact with. I think that Mia and Riley and maybe one or two other people should form the Paranormal Paranoids. I think that Mia should be part of the Paranormal Paranoids, or she should be featured in the footage of the Paranormal Paranoids. I think that you could make it, Riley started this YouTube channel when she was in her late teens in college. Maybe Mia gets roped into joining. Maybe Mia is just kind of in the background of some videos. Maybe she's the ride, right? Like, maybe she drives her sister and her dumb friends around while they film these videos, right? Maybe that is her role. And so she's in the background like, oh my God, like, you can't go in there. It's completely, like, we're not going to trespass. And, she's like, I'm standing outside to make sure that the cops don't come, and like, is the responsible, force in the background. Typical older sister vibes, right? Then you still get the Paranormal Paranoids. You could add in a few more of their, like, snippets of their episodes, right? But you also get, in those Paranormal Paranoids, it kind of becomes not just jump scares and not just dropping all of this information on us. It also becomes the vehicle through which you can show their relationship, right? So you can have those moments of, maybe after the cameras go off, like, Riley is really scared by something, and so Mia has to comfort her, and you can show that, like, show the care that they have for each other. Or maybe Riley goes missing, maybe she gets lost in the woods or something, and Mia has to go look for her. Or Mia thinks that she's lost in the woods and she has to go look for Riley, but Riley's just messing around with her. Like, my pitch. Here we go. What we got so far. Riley, tormented as a child, sees things she's not supposed to see, so can see, like, ghosts, has nightmares, draws scary things in her nightmares. Very introverted and fearful as a child, opens up as a teenager, kind of does a full 360 because she finds that she can perform as someone else, and begins this Paranormal Paranoids YouTube investigation channel with her sister and two of their friends from their hometown, which is not going to be Shelby Oaks. from their hometown. And they travel. Mia is the responsible, level-headed older sister who constantly is looking out for her younger sister and her dumb friends that want to go film themselves scaring each other in the woods, right? Mia is the one who is like, I'm going to show up and get shit done and make sure that nobody dies. That is Mia's deal, okay? And she loves her sister, but she is also very practical, right? So maybe she's top of her class in school and she wants to get out of their small hometown and, I don't know, give her a career, maybe she wants to be a journalist, and, wants to go to school to be a journalist and like travel. Maybe she wants to be a travel journalist or something, like travel around the world, and just kind of be free from these shackles of this life that she has in her hometown, where she is her sister's chauffeur. Maybe her mom, like they have a mom that lived in Shelby Oaks in the ghost town and doesn't talk about it. So her mom is like not super with it. Maybe her mom is like super flighty, kind of a hippie because she loves to be send them off into the woods and make them go camping and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm trying to tie in the tree thing. I don't know. But there you go. That's their life. And they are part of the paranormal paranoids. They go around. They can still go to the places that they went to in the movie, right? So they're at they go to this abandoned prison, right? And they're at the prison, the one that's in the movie. But this time, because Mia's in the paranormal paranoids, she goes there too. And I think Riley and her dumbass boyfriend should stage some kind of like scary thing where Riley Mia really thinks that Riley is in danger, gets very emotionally over the top about it, and they capture it on camera. And then it comes out that Riley was just faking, like Riley's always faking. Allegedly, okay? Because plot twist later on, Riley really wasn't 100% faking. There really was something going on. It was just her dumbass boyfriend maybe was like setting up so they were going to do a prank, but Riley really was scared and nobody believed her because it was already set up to be a prank. That kind of vibe, okay? They get in a huge fight because Riley is always playing things up for the camera, and like Mia said that she was uncomfortable going to the prison and Riley made her go anyways, and they get into this huge fight while they're there. And Mia says, I'm done with this. I'm not doing paranormal paranoids anymore. Yeah, so they have a big fight, right? Because of this prank that happened in the prison. And they still published the episode, but after that, paranormal paranoids split. So Mia and maybe one other friend, right? They stopped doing paranormal paranoids. Riley, and I don't know why I decided that her boyfriend was a dumbass. I feel like they're always a dumbass. I don't know. But Riley and her dumb boyfriend keep doing the Paranormal Paranoids podcast. They try to keep it going. And they end up going to Shelby Oaks. And then Riley goes missing in Shelby Oaks. And then the same thing that happens in the regular movie would happen, right? So we see, their YouTube channel takes off. There are people theorizing everywhere. And Mia now feels extreme guilt because the first video that they filmed that Mia didn't go on, Riley goes missing and she doesn't know where she is. And it eats her alive inside. And that, I think, would be and you could see that, right, happen because you would have these video clips of Riley's last night that Mia would have to watch, she would have to watch people dissecting over and over again. And you would also have the clips of Riley and Mia together, their interactions as sisters, positive and negative, right? And that big fight that they had. So we've introduced inter-character conflict into this movie. Because we had the breathing room, because we took out some of the other things going on. And I think that would build a really solid place for their relationship, right? You have these two characters that are foils of each other. You have a reason for them to have tension, but you also have that underlying reason of Mia is Riley's big sister, and you could still have the little tree carving thing in there, right? But they could be talking about it together in the found footage of Paranormal Paranoids. They could be talking about it together. And maybe Mia is annoyed because Riley is always doing it as a little like joke. And for Mia, she's like, this is a real, like, I really enjoyed those times with you and like finding our way through the woods together. And like she's making a joke out of it, you know? And I think that sets it up again to have that kind of more powerful relationship, because they are individual people with conflict that is not always just easy to navigate. I think we're also missing in this movie a real like feel for how the world is before the conflict of the movie happens, right? We're not really given a glimpse into Mia's life before she goes taking off to do her investigations and taking off to this abandoned prison to look for her sister, right? So I think that if we were rewriting it, I would have that found footage of the sisters where Mia is involved with Paranormal Paranoids. I would also have, maybe instead of the mockumentary, because I like the idea of the mockumentary. I don't know that it's necessary to keep all of it. Maybe a little bit of it. I don't know. If it's only 90 minutes still, I don't think we have time. There's no time. But anyways, I think that you need to show Mia's real life and how it operates without Riley there, and show the ways in which Mia has not been able to move on. So, right, in the found footage of Paranormal Paranoids, you could show Mia always studying, Mia saying, I got to work on my college applications, like, I'm going to be halfway across the country this time next year, like, or showing her getting accepted to a big school or whatever. But then now that Riley's gone, she's stuck. She's still, literally show her still in that same place. Like, if she had a shitty dead-end job, maybe like, I don't know, being a pizza delivery driver or something. No offense to pizza delivery drivers. Pay pizza delivery drivers all the money. But, if she had like the same job that she was stuck in her hometown that she hated, show her still there. Show her still living in her mom's house. Maybe her mom is older now and can't remember things, or has had to go to like assisted living, so her house is empty. But like, the same as it was before, just more run down. Show those things so that we feel like we can recognize that like those things are that Mia has been prevented from moving on, right? That the classic, right? Show Riley's room and it's still the same as how it was before. Or something happens that's like similar to something that happened in one of the found footage things, and like Riley turns around and is like, oh, my sister's gonna be there, and she's not, like, we need to have the sense that Riley needs to, at this point, she really needs to haunt this narrative. And what I mean by that is, like, even though she's not there, we need to feel like at any moment her presence could be, and the lack of her presence weighs down Mia specifically, and everybody else is moving on, right? And she hasn't. I think another good way to show this is, I don't even know that the dumb boyfriend has to die. I think that literally Riley could just go missing, or the other member of Paranormal Paranoids, again, add another layer of foil for Mia. Maybe that member of Paranormal Paranoids became a documentarian and is now returning to try to get Mia to talk about what happened to Riley. And Mia's like, fuck you, I don't want to talk about it. Like, how could you use her memory like that? All of that good stuff. Again, another character for her to have interpersonal conflict with. That's not just her husband saying, don't go. You need help. Like, that's not very interesting. Like, give us a character that's interesting, right? So, and I think showing, right, this person who was in the paranormal paranoids could have taken the same path as Mia and gotten tied down, but the difference was they didn't have that tie to her sister. They were able to free themselves and do whatever the fuck they wanted, right? They didn't have to be weighed down by duty and love and sisterhood like Mia has, right? They don't have that same level of grief that she has to figure out how to carry. So that's another layer of resentment too. Like, how could you move on and I couldn't and I can't, right? Like, it matters so much to me and it matters so little to you. And that would be a very interesting dynamic. And then you can still have that element of like the found footage and the documentary, but make that character matter, because there are so few characters in this. Really, we spend so much time with Mia in the original movie, right? But I think giving her someone to play off of, right? Putting her in that paranormal paranoid so that way we can see her play off of Mia. Putting the documentarian as a former member of Paranormal Paranoids, giving them that history and that shared backstory and conflict makes it automatically more interesting to watch. And I think, and so then that brings me to, right, we've done a lot with this character work, okay? We've changed how the world of this movie is going to operate, right? It's gone from this very basic idea of two sisters divided by time and blah, blah, blah. It still has those same bones. But by making Mia part of Paranormal Paranoids, by making the documentarian also part of Paranormal Paranoids, I think that we'll have added a layer of like emotionality that then you could use and show in specific scenes through giving Mia somebody to interact with, right? Showing her characterization because she has people to play off of. And I think you can cut out the husband entirely, because in this one, because it's my game, okay? I'm the one talking at the camera. You can't tell me anything until you get into the comments. So I'm cutting out the baby plot altogether. So she doesn't need her husband. No husband for Mia. Maybe at most she has a shitty deadbeat ex-boyfriend that she dated in high school that keeps coming around and trying to get into her business, you know? Maybe that. But that's it. Yeah, so I think we've done a lot of character work. Let's get into, okay, I'm not going to try to fix the pacing. I'm not going to try to go through plot point by plot point and be like, this is what I would have done differently. I just think in broad strokes, I think that if I think making changes so that the sisters can interact more and so that there is another level of relationality together, I think those things would make the movie stronger. The other thing that I think would make the movie stronger, and I said this before, is then, right, we have these characters and this world of the paranormal paranoids that we've built, right? What is a good supernatural entity to show the themes, like to really highlight the themes that we want to portray in this movie? We've already decided we're axing hot incubus guy in this version, okay? So what does that mean? One of the things that drew me to this movie was that I thought that they were going to a ghost town to investigate the ghost town, right? I think that the idea of it taking place in this town that was once like was Shelby Oaks really ever thriving, but was once full of people and families and individuals, is now empty, right? And for good or for worse, the town at one time had people in it and now it doesn't. And I think that is an interesting idea, right? And I think that the bones of that idea tie in really well with the themes that we've been trying to work out by fixing the sister relationships, right? What do you think of when you think of ghost town? Isolation, right? The echoes of a life that people once lived, and dreams that they once had, a future that they don't get to have because that place no longer exists, right? Just the bones of it exist. And so I think that the ghost town in and of itself, I think that that is what we should focus building that supernatural entity around. I think that in this movie, there were a lot of really interesting, if maybe a little cliche, but interesting ideas about like the shots of the ghost town were really great. The mold and decay, the idea that things decayed faster when they were possessed by the incubus in the movie, I really like that idea, right? I like the idea of some kind of supernatural entity that is heavy and weighing things down and hanging on to things in a way that they are decaying faster than would be normal. I think that's a good idea. I like it. And I really think that the focus of the movie should be, right? You have the initial setup of the paranormal paranoids, but then take us into this ghost town and really let us live in it and feel the isolation and the abandonment and the echo of what was there before. I think, just spitballing, okay? And again, is this going to make sense? Probably not. My first idea was demon time warp, okay? Again, what do I know? I think this is better than demon time warp. I think you got to have some kind of supernatural entity where kind of like what is that? A rose, kind of like a Rose for Emily, where the town itself becomes like its own like collective force. I think that you need to have something, the ghost town being its own collective force, this thing that pulls people in and doesn't let them go. Here's my idea. The basic bones of it. And I keep saying the word bones. The basic shell of an idea. Have that ghost town. Have it be the central focus. There needs to be some kind of force that is keeping people there. Maybe we do get into a time warp and it's sucking people in and it's not letting them go until like a random point in the past, present, future, or like maybe, they're sucked into the town for a certain number of years and then it lets them go, but it'll take somebody else, right? And if you're caught in this town, they're kind of ghosts, they're kind of not ghosts, but maybe they are decaying faster or aging faster than they would if they were outside of the town. Things in the town don't last, right? We see that level of decay. Maybe you go into the town and there's no animals, right? There's no birds, there's no butterflies, there's no dogs. Everything is dead and dying. Maybe you're forced to kind of do the same thing over and over and you don't really realize it. Something like that where we are stuck. Like once you get into the ghost town, you are stuck and you are forced to really reckon with that decay. And the only way to overcome it is to sacrifice something else to it, right? So if you get out, another person has to go in. And you're caught in, and maybe, when you're from the outside, when you're not in the actual like ghosty version of the town, you're just seeing those echoes of people that are trapped. You think they're ghosts, but then when you're inside the ghosty side of the town, you see things for how they really are, which is hella scary, right? Decaying, nightmarish, monster-y things, spooky monster ghost things, things that are trying to find some kind of life that they can suck out of somebody else, right? And hang on to it and pull them down. I think that is going to be a more effective entity than an incubus specifically, right? Because I just don't vibe with the incubus. I'm sorry. I mean, I do vibe with the incubus because part 2 is where I talk about what I would do if there was an incubus, but I don't vibe with the incubus. So I think that really highlighting the ghost town and making that the supernatural force that they're dealing with, I think that that's more effective because, too, you already don't really have a twist in this movie, right? I don't think that you need to have a super big, like, oh my God, dramatic, it was demons and the baby and the jump scare. No, right? Focus in on this relationship between the sisters. There was really good cinematography and really good atmosphere and scares. So put it in and take that desire for that atmosphere and just let yourself have right? Have that atmosphere to play in, right? And you can make a bunch of spooky, scary shots while she's looking for her sister and let her be finding out things about maybe, revealing more things about like the things that Riley sees, why she was called to this town, and why it wants to hang on to her. Maybe because she can see ghosts, she's got some kind of special insight. I don't know. But I think that makes a more interesting playground to play with. So that would be my 2 changes for the resolution of the movie, right? Because I think that is another thing that I personally had a problem with, was how abruptly it ended. You gotta have some investigating, right? Mia's gotta do some digging, and you need to have a reunion with the sisters that feels earned, right? Like maybe Riley has been faking this whole time, but Mia shows up for her anyways, right? Even though they had this fight and this conflict and they've always like had these issues, Mia is still going to show up for Riley, and Riley is still going to show up for Mia. And Riley needs to have a moment where she recognizes all that Mia has done for her. And Mia recognizes too that Mia's got to take care of Mia too, right? That Mia has to be okay with doing things and moving on, right? Even though it's hard and even though it feels like a betrayal, right? That you still have to find a way to carry on and live your life, because that's not what Riley wants for Mia either. And I think there are 2 ways to resolve this, right? I think one is maybe a way that's less my favorite, but probably more thematically in line. You might have to have Mia sacrifice herself for Riley, and then Riley becomes out of it a different person, right, than she was before. Or maybe you have them exit out together. Maybe they sister it up and are able to escape the ghost town, and they end up being stronger together, and they're like, okay, we are going to reunite and redo the Paranormal Paranoids and make hella internet money. I don't know if that feels narratively satisfying, but it would be fun. Or if you really want a gut punch, maybe Mia goes to this ghost town to try to save her sister, and maybe she can't, right? Maybe she goes all the way to this ghost town and she fights for her sister so hard, and maybe she can't. And maybe they have to come to the realization that her sister is gone, but she still has to move on and live her life. And Riley tells her to, right? If you want an emotional gut punch, right? That you got to find some way to carry on, even though that person that you love is left behind, and you know that they're there and there's nothing you can do about it, right? I think that would probably still have that emotional gut punch, but I think it would make that the ending with the hand tried to have. But I think it might be able to feel a little bit more impactful, because you still get the spooky times, but you also still get that like, oh shit, like things are really not going to be better for them. Maybe they both get trapped, right? Maybe 4th option, they both get trapped, right? They both end up... Mia, maybe that is the thing, right? That Mia decides that she actually can't move on with her life and she just wants to be with her sister, and they stay together. And then the emotional gut punch at the end is that this town is still going to be taking people. So you can still have that kind of classic horror of like, and then somebody else shows up and maybe the same thing is going to happen to them too. Doesn't that suck? Wow. I think any of those options, you can easily build like a case for them, right? Based on what you do in that ghost town time. You can still keep that, some of the jump scares in there. Just take out the dog. You can keep that old lady in there. Keep her in there. She's amazing. Keep that old lady in there. Take out the weird rapey plot. Blah. Hate. Veto. Take it out. And then, yeah, and give us some good ghosties, and really just lean into that isolation vibe. And, like you see people, but they can't hear you, and they really become, right? The ghosts in this movie, they really become people that are living but can't, are like people are moving on around you and you don't even realize it, right? I mean, fixing the pacing and fixing the pacing and the specifics of the plot is beyond me, but those are just how I would have changed it and what I think would have been more impactful to highlight the sisters and make better characters for me. We got path number 2, okay? And listen, path number 2 is going to be a lot shorter because this is just literally just for me, okay? This is not, if you got to completely take out the sister, all the beautiful things I said about how you're haunted and, you know, the world isn't a home when your loved ones aren't in it, whatever, like, take all that out, okay? It's hot demon time, okay? It's hot demon time, because if you give me a hot demon, okay, if you give me specifically an incubus, and we're not gonna have a sexy demon fall to the dark side, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We're not gonna do that. So that is my pitch for version 2, okay? I think you could still, let's say, still keep them as paranormal paranoids, okay? Keep their Mia and Riley's characterization that I said the same, okay? Riley's still a performer. Mia's still kind of a stick in the mud and an overachiever. But, okay, instead of what I said was going to be their major conflict of prison prank gone wrong. Okay, what actually is the problem? Okay, they come from in this one, they got to come from a religious family. Okay, I don't care what religion. It could be Catholicism. It could be anything, anything with demons in it. Okay, I don't care. But they're from a religious family. Okay, and their mom hates that they do this paranormal shit. But she made them promise that they would never use a Ouija board, okay? What do? They use a Ouija board to summon a demon, okay? Or they do some kind of weird demon, I don't know. Maybe there's a Ouija board, maybe they go and they do some kind of like ritual to summon a demon, and Mia's like, no, don't, mom told us not to, and Riley does it anyways. And it's like, haha, so funny. And then they end up getting attached to them, both of them, and this is important, now are being stalked by incubus demon boy, man, incubus demon guy, and his puppies, right? Yeah, so you still got the dogs, you still got, but no weird kidnapping rapey plot, okay? This is not that, okay? We are not doing that. We are doing where you get lulled, you get drawn to the dark side, okay? Because incubi, they're going to promise you every single thing that you want. For Riley, that's fame, right? For Riley, it is the opportunity to continue performing and to never have to stop performing and think about what she's running from, right? Like, because she still is a very tormented, anxious individual, unless she is putting on a persona. That is still who she is. And for Mia, it's the opposite. Mia doesn't really want a lot of attention, but she wants like success. She wants out of her small town, and she wants to not have to feel obligated to always take care of everyone all the time. Like, she just wants her family to be secure and safe, right? She wants her mom to be taken care of. She wants her sister to not be giving her an aneurysm all the time, summoning demons in the closet. And she wants to feel like she has some kind of stability in her life and a path forward that is not tied down by her obligations. That is both of their motivations, right? And so then instead, in this movie, you still have that sister relationship, but I don't know that it matters. I don't know. It's not going to be touchy-feely, right? It is like one sister ends up choosing the demon and the other one doesn't. That's the only idea I got, right? Like, I don't really have a solid idea for how you just make it the Incubus movie in an interesting way. I just think that somebody should do it, right? I think somebody should make a movie, like a horror movie, but you fall in love with the, and not even in love, right? Like, you get won over by the hot demon guy. I think that would be, I think, I don't even know that we really need to have all of the depth and care. I think I would just take anything at this point for that to be a movie that exists, right? Like, your monster walked, so sexy incubus demon horror movie with real jump scares and murder and dark atmosphere could run. Like, that's what I want. So that's the other option, right? And I don't know that I need anything else from it but more demon hot guy. Which is why I said this is going to be shorter, because also I'm tired. If you want me to do another one of these where we make, okay, what would be our ideal hot demon horror movie, right? Where they fall in love, right? If you want that, if you make it to the end, and if 10 people in the comments, okay, just 10, say that they want me to make another video, or if this does really well, then we'll do a part 2, and we'll go in depth, okay? We will go plot point by plot point, I promise. But for today, we're going to wrap it up. I know I look like I'm sad, and I look like I'm emotionally unhinged, and I am. But that's because this video is almost over. Okay? And I'm going to turn off my camera, and I'm going to have to edit all of this. But in conclusion, okay, did I like this movie? Not really. Okay, I think it was a good, again, I've never made a movie before. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? I can't even finish my fan fictions. Okay, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to finish this video. I was going to say I'm not a finisher, but I think that this movie is a solid attempt by someone who it's their first time making a horror movie. I think that they have a lot of potential. I think I would watch another movie by them again. I think if they want to hire me to do developmental character edits for their next movie, like, do that. You know, you don't even have to pay me. Just send me the script and I'll be like, write better women. End of note. But I think it has a lot of good bones. I get good vibes from this guy. I don't know. Like, when I was watching the interviews, I was like, man, I really hate that I didn't like this movie, because he seems like a really nice guy, and I'm glad that his passion project worked out for him and he got Mike Flanagan's name on something. Like, that's really cool. And I hope that he makes another movie. Unfortunately, this movie was just not for me. And I think a lot of times when I critique things, I feel bad because I am just not the kind of person where even if I love something, I can't leave it alone, right? I'm always thinking about, but what if something were different? Or wouldn't it be cool if this happened instead? And if you hate that about me, that's okay, right? I hate that about myself sometimes, but it's who I am. And I think that this movie could have benefited from a little bit more character development. I think this movie could have benefited from just a longer runtime, right? Let it breathe a little bit, but not in the way where we just added more scenes of her walking down a hallway. I think we needed to add in a few more scenes of her at least really honestly interacting with other people, or showing us the world that Mia lived in before and why it was impacted by Riley's disappearance, giving her some kind of characterization outside of good sister, want baby. That's it, right? I think it really would have benefited from that. I really love a sister story, right? I think that those kind of relationships are so important to explore and interesting to explore. So I was really disappointed that we didn't get into that more. If you, like me, if this has resonated with you at all, right? Let me know, right? I want to know what you all thought about the movie. I want to know what you maybe would have wished was done differently. I want to know what crazy theories did you have when you were halfway through the movie and you turned to your friends and were like, okay, but what if we're stuck in a time warp? I want to know it all. If you made it this far, let me know. Next time a video pops up on this channel, might not even be me, okay? Might be one of my girls, my friends. I hope so. Or it might be all of us together. And if you are interested in hearing more of my unhinged opinions, but also my friends' unhinged opinions, please go check out our other videos and subscribe. We're hoping to add some more things in the future. And I don't know that I'll be able to use any of this or if it will end up actually being a video, but I've really enjoyed doing this because I basically get to hold a camera captive and talk about all of my opinions and no one tells me to stop because I, as you can tell, am very long-winded. So, until next time, bye!